It seems like a silly hypothetical question. Would you rather be stuck in the forest with a man or a bear? But that question has sparked quite the debate on social media. Watch.
It's going to be a bear.
Videos are going viral on TikTok and Instagram, asking women who they'd rather be trapped in the woods with, a man or a bear.
I don't want my daughter with a random guy in the middle of the woods.
And this might surprise you, but a lot of people are picking the bears, shedding light on a much bigger issue.
A woman pulled into the woods, raped and beaten while on her way to work. Suspect wanted after a woman sexually assaulted in Manassas Woods.
Violence against women just will not stop. Horrific headlines like this one we hear on a daily basis. According to the National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey, more than half of women in the U.S. say at some point in their life they've experienced either violence or stalking. And the National Domestic Violence Hotline says violence by an intimate partner affects more than 12 million people every year. And with numbers like that, it makes you really think about the question, man or bear?
Well, joining us now to discuss that more is psychiatrist and public health expert, Dr. Yalda Safai. Dr. Safai, welcome to the show. Okay, help us understand, why are women so afraid of men in the 21st century?
Listen, this is a loaded question, but I think despite the tremendous progress we've made in terms of gender equality, women are still the subject of sexual harassment and violence overall. So, we've come a long way, but we still have a lot of work to do. And it's very understandable that women still today fear men. I mean, what we talked about right now, this viral trend going on TikTok is a beautiful example of that, of the atmosphere we're living in.
You know, it was interesting because when you heard these women talking about would they prefer to be alone in the woods with a man or a bear, many of them said they were actually afraid that they wouldn't be believed, that if they were attacked by a bear, someone would believe them. But if they were attacked by a man, they would spend the rest of their life having to try to prove the truth. Psychologically, what impact does that have when someone feels like they're not going to be believed?
That's very sad. And I think because history has taught us that women are not believed over and over again, right? It's not something that's in our heads. History has taught us that when women speak up, they get stigmatized, they get ignored, they get marginalized, and they're not believed oftentimes. So this is unfortunately what we've seen. And sometimes it takes survivors years to come out and say they were sexually assaulted. Why? Because they fear not being believed. And unfortunately, again, despite the tremendous progress we've made in terms of gender equality, that hasn't changed. It's still the same right now. We still have a lot of work to do in this aspect.
You know, that's the interesting thing. And a lot of men have actually responded on social media, feeling upset, feeling confused. Why are women choosing a bear over me? Aren't they insane? But what can this tell us, and what should people be doing in response to try to kind of help understand and unearth what you're telling us is there's still a lot of fear out there?
Sure. And I think the whole bear example is because, a bear is predictable. We know it's dangerous. We know how we have to behave around a bear. But a man, not so predictable. That man that we see in the woods could be violent, could be a good person, could, sexually assault us. We don't know. So that element of not knowing how to act and how to protect ourselves, I think, is the reason people are choosing the bear. And, I think in order to combat this issue, a major cultural shift has to be made, and that doesn't happen overnight. I think the best way to make a major cultural change is to put severe shame and stigma into the act of assault. And this is up to men to do that. Up until now, men don't seem to shame each other for sexually assaulting a woman. There needs to be great shame attached to that, so men are less likely to do it. We know that putting in laws hasn't, it prevents to a certain extent, but not completely. So I think a major cultural shift needs to be made to make women feel safe, and shame is a good way to do that.
Yeah, it takes both sides to have some progress here. Dr. Safai, I appreciate your insights. Good to see you. All right, so this is interesting. I actually wanted to understand this question. So I ran around our office and asked our news team and the women in our office, would you choose a bear or a man? And I asked 7 different people. Lonnie, you were one of them. Zero. Zero people actually said a man. I was so surprised.
Really?
Yes,
Come
zero.
on. Well, I just texted my wife, have you ever heard of this silly thing called man versus bear? And she said no. So I'm really glad.
Well, hopefully she's watching
but
tonight.
here's an interesting perspective shift, Chris, because a lot of men who are getting upset about this, they said, well, think about it as a father or as a husband. For your daughter or your wife, what would you choose, a bear or a man, for them to confront in the forest?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going. I don't. The whole thing seems silly to me.